The journey of life is not a linear progression but a spiral, one that constantly loops back on itself while rising toward higher states of awareness and being. We often experience these cyclical phases as moments of expansion and contraction, joy and sorrow, light and darkness, and in each phase, we are invited to deepen our understanding of ourselves and the universe. These cycles are not random or arbitrary, but an essential aspect of life's expression. And yet, we often resist them. We want to skip the difficult phases and rush toward the bright ones, overlooking the rich opportunities for growth and self-discovery that each cycle holds. However, when we learn to honor the rhythms of life, we discover that each phase, whether light or dark, brings with it profound wisdom and transformative potential. The ancient teachings of spiritual traditions and modern psychological theories alike affirm that the human experience unfolds in cycles. Whether we are looking at the rhythms of nature, the stages of our psychological development, or the flow of our emotions, there is a universal truth: everything in life moves in cycles. These cycles, while universal, are also deeply personal. Each person moves through them in their own unique way, but the underlying truth remains the same. Life is a dance between light and shadow, growth and decay, and renewal. In the wisdom of shamanic traditions, this cyclical nature of existence is central. Shamans, who have long understood the mysteries of life and death, speak of the importance of moving in harmony with the natural cycles of the earth and the soul. Shamans believe that the earth herself is alive, and that all things, from the trees to the mountains to the stars, are part of an interconnected web of existence. They see the human soul as just another manifestation of the earth's cycles, undergoing its own transformations. The journey of the soul, according to shamans, is not about escaping the cycles of life but about embracing them fully. Whether one is in a period of intense suffering or deep joy, the key is to learn to move with the rhythm of life, rather than resisting it. To resist the natural flow of these cycles is to deny oneself the opportunity to grow. The teachings of modern spiritual guides like Eckhart Tolle and Rupert Spira also point to the cyclical nature of the soul's journey. In The Power of Now, Tolle emphasizes that the present moment is the only true point of access to spiritual awakening. He teaches that much of human suffering arises from our attachment to the past and our fear of the future. The cycles of the soul, in this sense, can be viewed as invitations to live fully in the present. Whether we are experiencing a time of joy, a time of sorrow, or a time of uncertainty, each moment is an opportunity to release the grip of the ego and surrender to the flow of life. Tolle's teachings echo the core wisdom of Advaita Vedanta, which emphasizes the oneness of all existence. The true nature of reality, according to Vedanta, is formless consciousness, and everything that arises in our lives, whether it's a moment of peace or a moment of turmoil, is part of that formless essence expressing itself. In this way, the soul's cycles are not something to be feared or resisted but to be welcomed as expressions of the deeper truth of who we are. The challenge is to release our attachment to form and to embrace the impermanence of life. Just as the seasons of nature are in constant flux, so too are the cycles of our emotions, thoughts, and experiences. To identify with the impermanent is to live in suffering, but to recognize the eternal presence that witnesses all change is to experience liberation. While the teachings of spiritual masters like Tolle and Spira offer profound insights into the cyclical nature of the soul, the field of psychology also offers valuable perspectives. Psychological models, such as those developed by Erik Erikson and Daniel Levinson, propose that human life is a series of stages, each one marked by specific challenges and opportunities for growth. These stages, however, are not linear. We don't simply pass through one stage and then move on to the next. Instead, we revisit the themes of each stage throughout our lives, sometimes in unexpected ways. For example, someone who is in midlife may find themselves confronting themes of identity, security, and purpose that are typically associated with adolescence or young adulthood. This is the cyclical nature of psychological growth. The themes we encounter in our youth are not left behind. They return at different points in our lives, sometimes to be revisited with greater wisdom and understanding. This recognition of cyclical growth is important because it reframes the way we view psychological setbacks or periods of stagnation. In conventional psychology, we often see setbacks as failures or as something to be overcome. But in the context of spiritual wisdom, setbacks are not failures, they are invitations for deeper integration and transformation. If we are going through a winter of the soul, a time of inward reflection and potential stagnation, it is important to honor that time of rest. It may feel uncomfortable or even disorienting, but just as the earth needs the winter to prepare for the new growth of spring, so too does our soul need its own cycles of rest and renewal. To truly embrace the cycles of the soul, we must learn to trust in the process of life itself. This trust does not mean that we passively wait for things to happen, but rather that we actively participate in the unfolding of our lives. As Alan Watts often taught, life is not something that happens to us, but something that we are constantly co-creating. Life is a dance, and we are both the dancer and the dance. To resist the rhythm of the dance is to miss the beauty of the movement. Watts often used the metaphor of the wave and the ocean to describe the relationship between the individual and the universe. The wave rises and falls, but it is never separate from the ocean. It is always part of the larger whole. The seasons of the soul are like the waves, they rise and fall, but they are never disconnected from the vast ocean of existence. Our task is to recognize that we are the wave and the ocean, both finite and infinite, both temporary and eternal. This understanding of the soul's cyclical nature is also reflected in the concept of soul retrieval, a central practice in many shamanic traditions. When we experience trauma or deep emotional wounds, a part of our soul may fragment and withdraw into the unseen realms. The practice of soul retrieval involves journeying into these realms to reclaim these lost fragments. This process is an acknowledgement that healing often involves returning to past wounds and reintegrating the lessons that were left behind. These soul fragments may appear in the form of forgotten aspects of ourselves, our creativity, our vitality, our inner peace, that were lost during times of hardship or emotional pain. Reclaiming these fragments is essential for our spiritual growth because it allows us to reintegrate the wisdom that is hidden in our pain. The concept of soul retrieval is particularly relevant when we think about the seasons of the soul. Just as the earth goes through cycles of growth, decay, and renewal, so too does the soul. The winter of the soul, the periods of darkness and introspection, are often necessary for the retrieval and integration of lost parts of ourselves. It is during these times of inner darkness that we can confront our deepest wounds and, through this confrontation, reclaim our power. The darkness is not something to be feared, it is an essential part of the cycle of renewal. Just as the earth must undergo periods of dormancy to allow new growth, so too must the soul sometimes retreat into the darkness to prepare for the light that is to come. In fact, the very notion of darkness in the soul's journey is often misunderstood. Darkness, in this sense, is not synonymous with suffering or despair, although those emotions may accompany it. Darkness is simply the unmanifest, the unseen, the space where potential exists before it takes form. It is the fertile soil where new ideas, new energies, and new life can take root. In spiritual traditions, the dark night of the soul is often portrayed as a time of intense suffering, but it can also be a time of great transformation. The darkness is not the enemy, it is the womb of creation. Similarly, the light of the soul's journey is not simply happiness or contentment. It is the radiant energy of awakening, of seeing oneself and the world as they truly are. The light is not something that comes to us from the outside, but something that arises from within when we have cleared away the blockages and illusions that have kept us from seeing our true nature. In this sense, the seasons of the soul are not about avoiding the dark in favor of the light, but about learning to integrate both. The soul needs both the darkness and the light to grow, to evolve, and to realize its full potential. The cycles of the soul are not something that we can control or predict. Just as the seasons of nature change without our intervention, so too do the seasons of our inner world. The key is not to resist these changes but to surrender to them. We cannot force spring to come any sooner, nor can we hold on to summer forever. The soul's cycles are governed by forces beyond our comprehension, and our role is simply to flow with them, trusting that each season has its own purpose and wisdom. The more we learn to trust in this natural flow, the more we find ourselves at peace with the ever-changing nature of life. Ultimately, embracing the seasons of the soul is about learning to live in harmony with the natural rhythms of life. It is about understanding that we are not separate from the cycles of nature but that we are a part of them. As we move through the seasons of our lives, we are invited to witness the cycles of growth, decay, and renewal within ourselves. Each season offers a gift, whether it is a moment of expansion or a moment of contraction, a moment of light or a moment of darkness. The key is to embrace each moment fully, trusting that the rhythm of life will guide us where we need to go.